Hey guys, welcome, and another welcome back to another episode of Triple Overtime. I am so excited. We have so many amazing things to get to, just some incredible, monumental sports events going on. We're going to be talking a little NBA Finals. We're going to be talking a little baseball, a little football, a little bit of everything here. But as always, it's your boy, Austin Snyder, with Dylan Holloway, Amar Burton. Dylan, you have had some very incredible, amazing news. So share with us and the world here what you got to say. How you doing, man? What's going on?
I'm good. I just, as you guys know, and a few others, I just got hired on to do an official news gig. So I got a real job coming right out of college, which I'm very thrilled about. Internship is wrapping up. I'll keep it under wraps for now, exactly where it's at, until I'm ready to reveal that to the masses. But if you follow me on Facebook, you probably already know. So, I mean, I have my Facebook private, but those who do watch a show are Facebook friends with me. So I did announce it on Facebook. So, but I'll do a mass public announcement later on. So, yeah, I'm real jacked about it.
You're gonna like that lined up, or you're gonna like how are you gonna announce this? Like, what are you gonna?
Well, yeah, the hats of which station I'm gonna go to. Like I'm taking my picking my college team over here. Yeah, like, I'll be like, like that one kind of thing. Or no, I'm gonna do the LeBron James The Decision. It's gonna be an ABC special, 4 hours long. A good 20% of the proceeds are gonna go to charity.
Well,
yeah, maybe 15%. We'll see how it all evens out at the end there. We got to check the ratings and the numbers, brother. No, I'm kidding. Of course. I am very excited about it, though. Joining the real world here as I'm wrapping up school. So what about you, Amar? What do you got going on lately?
It's Olympic time. So anyone that knows me knows I'm watching the Olympics. I'm watching Team USA. I was
just waiting for him to hold up like a Simone Biles jersey or something.
I'm watching Cuba. I'm watching the U.S. I'm watching Thailand. I'm watching I don't watch every sport because it's really too much. And I mean, like archery and shooting and, kayaking are boring, but I'm watching a lot all day. The kids are kind of probably mad at me because, they're not getting to watch all their cartoons and stuff. But, it's only a couple of weeks and then we'll go back to our regularly scheduled program. So that's me, Olympic house over here.
We can appreciate it, bud. The patriotism, everything else. It's good to have, despite the fact that you're literally following numerous other countries that aren't the U.S. But I got to tell you, I don't know about you guys, but it's I'm a little disappointed in the performance of the United States so far in the Olympics. It just seems like and I'm not just talking about basketball either, but it seems like they just can't catch a break. This morning, I received an ESPN little notification or whatever the little deals that pop up on your phone notification. Anyways, that Simone Biles got hurt and won't be able to compete in the rest of the United States Olympic or rest of the Olympics for the United States. And it just seems like they cannot catch in any of these events that they typically do an incredible job in and are usually picking up gold.
Now, Austin, I thought it was an injury as well. I talked with Amar a little bit before we went on the air here, and he said it was actually something else. Amar, why don't you fill us in on because I thought I heard injury as well. So I don't know if I read bad information or what happened.
It happened. I guess USA Gymnastics said it was a medical issue. It turns out that she said it was basically like a mental health situation. She said she wasn't in a good headspace going into the team competition. And so she had done I think one of the apparatuses in the team competition and decided to drop out and just cheer on, her teammates. And I mean, she was, still there. She was being supportive. She was getting girls, water and towels and, playing cheerleader role basically. But she was just she wasn't in a good headspace to compete that day. And that she wanted to make sure that she was okay for the individual competition. So she's not out of the Olympics. Okay. She was just I just wasn't feeling right, that day to do the team thing. So, and then
based on the way they had worded it, it seemed like she was done for the rest of the Olympics. So that's
a lot of people thought she was hurt just because the official release said a medical issue, and so they assumed that she had some kind of injury. But I guess it's not exactly that. So we'll just we'll see where it goes from here.
Well, good for her, though. As those of you who watched last week, I did a little segment on it. Mental health is incredibly important. And there's not a single person, athlete or otherwise, that should be chastised or ridiculed for taking whatever time off they need to work on that, So especially, when you're talking about the level that Simone Biles is at, when you're getting, all eyes are on her constantly, it's just, especially with sports like that or events like that really otherwise kind of run under the radar. Not many people pay a bunch of attention to, other than when it's a real close race or something, epic happens. Somebody sticks a great move and wins gold with an injury or whatever the case. But Simone Biles, she really has been that Michael Jordan or Tiger Woods or, that kind of person to her event, to bring such a huge national spotlight, and especially from the U.S., just the recognition to what she does. So it's never a good thing when you don't have someone like that competing, right? You want, especially in a year where the Olympics across the board ratings are way, way down. So
That's a nice way to wrap that up there with a little spit in the bottle. That's very classy. We are on camera.
At that point,
we are on camera. Just to remind you. You're right. Mental health is incredibly important, and I'm glad that she just like Aaron Rodgers, felt brave enough to speak out, because it is really hard to speak out, especially if you're someone at that level with that kind of spotlight on you. You know what I mean? Because everybody's judging you on everything anyways. So, there's lots of people who just want to troll people for speaking out about stuff like that. And that's unfortunate. But, they were brave enough to say, hey, here's the deal. So I commend not only them, but anyone in any walk of life who's reaching out for help or saying, hey, I need to take a step back, because, that's important, and as I know,
people at that status, I don't know. I've always felt the way, like, they have an obligation to speak out. You know what I mean? Like, when you're at a level to where you can reach the masses, the millions, in regards to issues like that are important to you, more important to people close to you, whatever the case. Yeah, you do. You have an obligation to speak out on those things and bring, shine a big, huge magnifying glass on them, because others can't. Even just with our show here weekly, we try to touch on, topics that are important to each one of us and us as a collective together, because it's important to shine the light on those things. And if we can get 100 people to watch this video, you know what I mean? Like, that's 100 more people that at least we're aware of what we think is an important thing to be aware of. So, I think it's great that we're seeing more and more athletes on not just mental health, but any and all social issues, mental health issues, physical health issues, abuse issue, anything like that. Just get more and more confident to be able to step up and say, hey, this is important to me, and it's not being talked about enough. And I think it needs to. Like, that is a really, really big step, just for any conversation in total, so that we're not dealing with such, one, an echo chamber of things, as well as two, just not being able to see. We don't know what other people's difficulties are. And I want to be able to be aware of those things to help in any way that I can,
Yeah. She's the face of her sport. She's arguably the face of the Olympics. And her sport is one where, the, pressure to be perfect. That's kind of the nature of her sport.
Absolutely.
It's a subjective sport. It's being judged by other people. And it's like, yeah, they pretty much have to be perfect, like to win the gold medals and stuff that she wins. So, someone like her coming out and talking about something like this, I think it even hits a little more than, even an athlete in a high profile athlete in a different sport,
Right.
Yeah, I agree. But something else that we want to get to. Let's get into some NBA here. Let's talk a little bit NBA, the finals and the draft coming up. So first, let's start with the finals. You know, obviously, we all saw what happened in the finals. The Bucks finally broke through. Giannis finally broke through. You know, finals MVP. He's got the championship now. Like Coach Bud is now a championship coach when a month ago people were saying he couldn't do adjustments and shouldn't be the coach anymore. Like, it's so funny how things like that flip, right? Like, he was
I bought a log cabin after our last episode to just constantly walk around on wood as we shoot these episodes week to week in the predictions that I make.
Exactly. Oh, and that reminds me.
Yeah.
I want to remind everyone, Austin saying that Chris Paul was finally going to be a world champion, an NBA champion. And he said, it's so glad to see him finally reach up and grab that brass ring. And I told Austin, I'm pretty sure you just jinxed him. And you know what happened after that? The Suns lost 4 games in a row. Suns in 4 guy. Suns in 4 guy. How many games did the Suns lose? 4 in a row. So Austin with the mega jinx there to completely deny the Suns yet again of a world championship. They're still waiting for their first championship. Bucks got their second championship, first one since the 70s. I think it was like 72. Is that correct, Amar?
So yeah,
71, 72. Yeah,
71, 72, something like that.
Second or third year in the league.
Yeah, so I want to ask you guys, now that the championship is over, how much more shine does this give to Giannis? Is he now, I see people like Nick Wright saying now he's the greatest player in the world, which, I mean, almost feels like parody at how much we flip-flop on this kind of thing.
Right.
Like Durant has a great game, he's the greatest player in the world. Durant has a bad game, he's not the greatest player in the world. You know what I mean? So is Giannis now like, is he the greatest player in the world, I guess? And is he one of the greatest of all time? Like, what's his legacy? I know Amar loves to use this word legacy when it comes to NBA players. And if those who don't know, Amar's got a little Facebook group, West Coast Hoops, to go along with his website, West Coast Hoops. Is that correct? Right? Where he does some articles, basketball stuff. And he likes to get the conversation going and ask on people's legacies. Chris Middleton. And there's a lot of fun back and forth on that. So check it out if you want to be in on that conversation. But Amar, I'll start with you, the legacy man himself. What is Giannis's legacy now that he's finally got that championship, that elusive NBA title?
It's funny because it's like, I know that there are a lot of people who are kind of in a rush to crown the next best player in the world. A lot of that because they're tired of LeBron James having been called the best player in the world. And so there was a rush to make it Kevin Durant and to make it Kawhi Leonard and to make it, Giannis and, whoever else came along that won an MVP or won a championship or won a finals MVP. So I understand, the immediate reaction. Okay, Giannis won the title. He was finals MVP, dominant performance. He averaged 35 in the series. He scored 50 in the clinching game. So obviously, yeah, that's huge feather in his cap for that best player in the world currently argument, which seems to flip-flop because, a month ago, it was Kevin Durant, no question. After he had that 49-point game against Giannis, right, when everyone thought Brooklyn was going to lose. So that was like, oh, Kevin Durant's definitely, no question, best player in the world right now. And then a month later, now Giannis is the best player in the world. And after Kawhi won a championship, he was the best player in the world. And then LeBron won it, and he was the best player in the world again. So I just think it's good for the game that we have so many players that could be in the conversation and that you can make a serious argument about. That's a good thing. That it's not just, it's definitely this guy and nobody can catch him, As far as, I feel like it's too soon to just say where Giannis stands right now because the championship is still fresh. It's kind of like, let's revisit the argument, a month into next season, maybe when people kind of have some time to kind of chill out and calm down and, all time legacy. Like that's another thing where because I've seen people saying, okay, well now he's surpassed Durant career wise, well, he's already done something that LeBron never did. So he's in the conversation to pass him. But you talk to those same people and you're like, okay, well, has he surpassed Charles Barkley? Has he surpassed Karl Malone? Comparing him to other power forwards, right? Did he surpass Dirk? And then their nostalgia kicks in and they're like, well, no, he's not better than Barkley.
Oh, right. It's funny how, and just a quick decide. You're talking about the 2 rings of Durant versus the 1 ring of Giannis. I kind of was talking to you guys about this a few days ago. It's funny how people just get to decide on their own as a fan. Well, this guy's 1 ring beats this guy's however many rings. You know what I mean? And they're like, well, I definitely would rather have the 1 ring instead of Durant's 2 rings. It's like, really? You'd rather have the 1 instead of the 2? You know, like realistically, would you rather have Giannis's 1 ring as opposed to like Bill Russell's 11?
Yeah. And
right. Probably not.
We were talking about like a role player. Like, okay, Andre Iguodala's got 3 rings as a role player, essentially. So I could see like, okay, I'd rather have 1 ring as like the man than 3 coming off the bench, right? That makes sense. But like Kevin Durant won Finals MVP.
Yeah, right.
Like
he put up historical numbers doing it. I mean,
per series.
Yeah, it was nuts.
Yeah, like Durant was a superstar. He did superstar things on his way to those championships. So why are those not as good as 1 Giannis ring? And if we want to throw asterisks on stuff and, you know, oh, this is why the ring wasn't as good, we can't ignore the injury factor from this postseason. Like, if everyone was relatively healthy, and yes, everyone's banged up to some level in the postseason, but would Giannis have even played the Suns in the finals? Would he have beaten the Clippers or the Lakers if they were healthy? Would he have beaten Brooklyn if they were healthy? Like, so if you want to throw, you know, salt on people's championships, like there's plenty of salt we can spread around in this Giannis championship.
You could do it with previous championships too.
With every ring, though, they see, and that's the problem that I have with that, and it's one of the reasons why the asterisk thing has become so ridiculous to me, as well as the conversation of best in the greatest in the world or whatever currently has almost become a satirical conversation, at least amongst us. You know, we laugh and joke about it a lot because you're right. It does flip flop every month. There's a different player. You know, I remember at one point when Paul George was like a very heavy favorite for MVP, and all of a sudden he was like, oh, this guy's the best, greatest in the world. He's better than everybody else. And it's just so ridiculous to me. Personally, I don't know. So I think for Giannis, it's not going to be so much that he won the championship, but now he has to maybe win it back to back or win a second at this point to really like cement his place. And because I think he's a guy that could end his career being in that top 10, maybe even top 5 all-time category, right? But for me, it's more like I think this championship helps the league in regards to letting Giannis kind of usher in as that new face of the NBA, right? I mean, it's something that's very, very possible in regards to, much like what Amar talked about, where everybody's trying to crown the greatest player in the world because it's been LeBron James for so long, and it's become such a stale conversation, where a similar thing's going on with face of the NBA. And I think Giannis can be that guy. He is he's that baby face right now, right? Where he won with a team that, like, he was drafted by them. He grew with them. He was patient with them. He always stayed behind the Bucks. Never once did he ever have a conversation or any kind of, at least not that I'm aware of, any kind of soundbite where he even hinted to like, maybe I need to go somewhere else, you know? So I think it's a big, big push in him being the face of the league. But that greatest in the world conversation, as far as right now or otherwise, as of right now, he is. You know why? Because he just won Finals MVP. You know, but let's wait to see if Kevin Durant or Bam Adebayo or somebody ends up dragging this horrendous U.S. Olympic team to a gold title, and then maybe they're the best in the world. You know what I mean? It's just such a ridiculous conversation at this point.
What's funny about that, Austin?
It was much needed.
What's funny about that is NBA fans definitely value who wins the NBA championship over more who powers the Team USA to the Olympic win. You know what I mean? They always say Charles Barkley never won a championship, and they make fun of him for his 0 rings. He was the best player on the '92 Dream Team. He was the best player on maybe the best basketball team ever, where they obliterated everybody else, and nobody gives him love for that. They just go, "Oh, Charles Barkley with the 0 rings is so bitter."
Right, and that team is widely regarded as like the greatest the greatest assembly of talent of all time ever. And Charles Barkley was the best out of them.
So how come Charles Barkley is never in the GOAT talk? Let's go and put this narrative forward right now.
because he had to go to a super team to win those gold medals.
He didn't go to the super team. It's not like the USA Dream Team was already there and then he went there.
Like literally everyone on the team except for one guy is like a Hall of Famer. Like Hall of Famer's the one. Like yeah, so Barkley couldn't win without a super team. That's
right. He was by far the best player on that team, though. I think he had like almost 19 points per game, and nobody was even close to that. Like he was, and then right after that, when he came back from that, he went to he had his MVP season, I believe, right after that with the Phoenix Suns.
Yeah,
because they had it in '93, right? Yeah. So that stretch
it's
of basketball in a vacuum is probably one of the best stretches of individual basketball in like basketball history, right? But nobody's ever like, man, like they don't even give Charles Barkley love on best power forward of all time. Like very rarely do I see that. They give him love on the guy who got the most out of the least physical ability because he was short for power forward, and I don't mean physical ability in terms of strength, but he was 6'5", as a lot of people know, and a power forward. He would get like 11 rebounds a game in the golden age of centers and big men. Like he was out rebounding some of the best rebounders of all time, and he was putting up 20 and 10 forever. You know what I mean? That's his career average.
And I feel like that's actually the more interesting Giannis debate is where does he rank now among the great power forwards, right? So it's like Dirk Nowitzki, Tim Duncan. Well, some people think Tim Duncan's a center, but Barkley, Malone, all those guys, like that's a more interesting debate. The problem with that, and the reason why you aren't going to see it as much, is none of those guys are very polarizing. And that's a word we've used a lot on this podcast too. Jordan's not in there. LeBron's not in there. Kobe's not in there. You need like the polarizing people that have like the passionate love-hate fan bases. That's what keeps these arguments going for years and years. And so while the Giannis power forward debate might be more close and interesting, it's not going to get as much traction. But yeah, it is like, put Giannis's what he's done so far up against Dirk or up against Barkley or Malone. Like it's a good debate to have.
Yeah, I agree. But let's move on. Let's talk some NBA draft here. NBA draft is coming up. I know a lot of I don't know about you guys, but I've been watching the mock drafts pretty closely. I'll start with you, Austin. Which individual player are you most excited to see what they do at the next level? Let's keep the question simple. Let's just get your opinion on that.
As biased as it sounds, I got to say Jalen Suggs. The Gonzaga standout that increased his draft value tremendously this last season. He's widely predicted as a top 3 to 5 pick, going into this draft, at least based on the last mock drafts that I
see a lot of people saying number 4 to the Raptors.
Right. See, and I think that could be an incredibly interesting move. I think he could do a lot of good things. My problem with that is I think that I don't think he changes the fortune of the Raptors with that move, right? I think it's something where like the torch gets passed from like Kyle Lowry to Jalen Suggs. You know what I mean? Where like they continue that consistent play of like, seeing the playoffs pretty regularly, but never really doing anything. Other than the one season where they had Kawhi and he played at his best, in that finals run to win the championship. But yeah, I think it could be an interesting thing. I think he's a guy that could have a huge impact right away. He kind of fits the mold of what we've seen out of that, guard position here that seemed like not just big success, but early big success out of guys like Trae Young, Luka Doncic, John Morant, et cetera. Just a scorer, a 3-level scorer who, he can play some defense. It's definitely, I wouldn't say is his forte. I would say Suggs is a little bit better defender than, some of the guys we've seen in the past, like the ones I've just mentioned. But he what I like about Suggs and what I think will translate so well into the next level is not how creative he is as a scorer, because he is very creative, but he brings a huge level of intensity and heart, right? To me, that makes a lot of the difference between those guys that are just really, really talented but don't pan out in the league and the guys who maybe aren't as talented. Well, we just happen to see a guy that has both of those things, very, very talented and a lot of grit and heart. If you were someone who followed that Gonzaga team this last season, you saw him. He never gave up. You know what I mean? He always, no matter how, and there was a lot of times throughout the season, even when they were still undefeated, where you're like, okay, well, this is the game game they're going to drop. And somehow they dug their way out of it. And he was a huge component to that. So I'm incredibly excited to see him go to the next level. And I'm super confident that not only is he going to make an immediate impact, but he's got to be the favorite for Rookie of the Year right out of the gate.
Amar, what do you think? Who do you like coming out of the draft?
I like Evan Mobley. I've talked about him, I think, on this podcast before, written about him on West Coast Hoops. Thanks for that plug earlier. But he's we
help each other out here on Triple Overtime. All right. Yeah. Yeah.
Big man coming out of USC, freshman, pretty much cleaned up all the Pac-12 like individual awards, took USC farther in the tournament than people expected. I'm mostly interested to see kind of how he fits into the current NBA, because, if he had come along a few years earlier, I think he would be like probably the number one pick. But just the game is different now. He's still going to be top 3. I don't see him getting past Cleveland with the 3rd pick. But just like the way he plays, it's almost like, it's kind of weird to say like old school because it wasn't that long ago, but his game reminds me of like and I've seen him compared to Anthony Davis a lot, but he reminds me more like a Chris Bosh.
Okay.
A real like mature game, kind of like plays beyond his years because he's like 19, but he plays like a vet. And yeah, I want to see like what team he goes to, whether it's Houston at 2 or Cleveland at 3. How he fits into there. If he goes to Houston, who are just kind of in this, wide open rebuilding mode, does he become the face of their franchise when a lot of teams don't really do that with big men nowadays, and just with kind of the style they want to play. I'm really like interested to see like where he goes, how he fits, and how does he kind of work in today's league with his like skill set.
So Amar, you actually bring up an interesting point, not to get us, too off the rails, because I know we're, on a limited time here. But as you mentioned, he's kind of, seen as that old school, as crazy as it is to sound. But with the success that we've seen out of the Bucks, and now that, we've got a Finals MVP in Giannis Antetokounmpo, who, can't shoot a 3 or really a jump shot to save his life. And then we saw such a huge rise in stardom out of DeAndre Ayton this playoff run. And he, up until the finals where he kind of disappeared, but we saw just this guy play so incredibly. And these are guys that are considered old school at their position, or, they're just not in that new age where they can shoot it from anywhere in the gym, but yet they're still playing efficiently and highly effective. And Giannis is dominating the league with, all of his awards and everything. How does that change the landscape of the draft? I mean, do you guys think that we start seeing a little bit of a different approach of, people foregoing on some of these more traditional forward roles or center roles for the guy that, can shoot the 3 and handle the ball and all that stuff at that position? You know what I mean? Do we start to see a rise of that more traditional big man get back up into those lottery picks and see teams see that still is a very, very valuable piece for a championship run?
Yeah. Well,
go ahead.
Yeah, well, and you can add on top of that, like Nikola Jokic just won league MVP, and Joel Embiid led Philly to the best record in the East. So, I mean, yeah, like the classic big man is still there. He's still thriving. You wouldn't know it by looking.
See, and that's almost the problem that I have with that, though, is it's like in this day and age, because obviously we know Embiid and Jokic can hit some form of a jump shot and 3-point. You know what I mean? It's almost like if they can at all, they're just considered like a 3-point stretch big man, when like the reality is Jokic and Embiid are very traditional big men that play with their back to the basket. They just happen to be able to shoot the ball. You know what I mean? Like, but I wouldn't say that that's like a key component to, their game, or I wouldn't say that. I would say Chris Bosh was probably more of like a stretch forward than like Jokic or Embiid or whatever. But people just immediately like, well, he can hit a 3-point shot, so he must be a stretch big. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And
what are you going to say, Dylan?
It's an interesting point you bring up that the death of the big man is greatly exaggerated, the traditional big man, right? Because Giannis, for all intents and purposes, is the closest thing to like a traditional big that we have right now. Like he can hit a three once in a while, but I mean, that's not his game. His game is in the paint.
I think
and
he was like 2 for 15 in the finals or something.
Right. And he takes it because everybody literally backs up 100 feet, right?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Might as well.
Yeah, might as well. And but he does a lot of his work in the paint, rebounds, you know what I mean? Like he's not the same players like a Shaquille O'Neal or anything where he's just posting up the entire game, but he's doing a lot of stuff in the paint. And it reminded me of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, not to change sports. They won the Super Bowl with defense and offensive line, right? So a lot of us are falling in love with, NFL's all offense now. And that's all you need, and that's all it takes to win. Well, they won with defense and offensive line, and in the NBA, the Bucks won with a more traditional big man, right? I know they can shoot threes, but Chris Middleton, he shoots a lot of mid-range jumpers, which is another thing that's kind of dying out in today's league. So to just think that like all that stuff is gone by the wayside is not true, and it proves that it can still be very successful in today's professional sports, at least I believe. But keeping on with the NBA draft here, one player that I'm kind of interested in, and I know he's further down the rankings to keep up with the Gonzaga theme, is Corey Kispert, right? I want to see, because I've seen this guy everywhere on the draft board throughout just the college season, right? Like at times he was like a lottery pick.
Oh yeah.
And now I've got him at 15 here, CBS Sports. Shout out to them. I got them at 15 going to the Washington Wizards. And a lot of people believe that he's the best shooter in the draft, which in today's NBA, as we just mentioned, is very coveted, right? You know, I don't think you're going to get as much on defense out of him as a lot of these other great players. But if he really can develop into that great shooter coming off screens, that is very valuable. So I'm just really interested to see how he develops in the league. And he's not a player that's going to come out and like immediately start dominating the league. Obviously, it's going to take some time. But, you know, maybe if like him and Bradley Beal together, you know, if Bradley Beal stays with the Wizards, which is a big question right now because there's rumors that he's going to demand a trade or he has demanded a trade or wants to go to the Lakers. What's funny to me is like every Lakers fan thinks that every player is wanting to go to Lakers right now. They're going to trade Kyle Kuzma for half the league. You know what I mean? Like it's a funny Lakers joke, but just to keep on with the NBA draft thing. But let's move on to another sport here. Let's talk some NFL, some National Football League. We're in the offseason, but there's a bit of news if you've been keeping up. One last dance with Aaron Rodgers. He's coming back to the pack, right? It's kind of been in the news back and forth. We've touched on the show a couple times if he was going to come back, if he wasn't going to come back. So and if you're confused by the story, don't fret, because so are we, because there's a lot of stuff to keep on up with here. There's a lot of moving parts. It's not just he wanted more money to come back, right? Adam Schefter reported that it wasn't about money whatsoever, but the Packers have placed in some provisions, some concessions, whatever you want to call them, for him to come back. And I'm going to go over some of those here real quick, and then I want to get your guys' thoughts on them. So supposedly, and this is all, I don't know how official any of this is, you know, like I've seen it reported that this is reportedly what he wants, but so the 2023 year in Rodgers' contract is getting voided. No tags, no nothing. They're dropping the last year. The Packers would agree to review Rodgers' situation at the end of the season. That sounds pretty vague to me. Rodgers' contract would be adjusted with no loss of income to give the Packers more cap room now, which is obviously important if they want to win now. And here's the most interesting one that I really don't even know what this means, but it says provisions will be put in place to address Rodgers' issues with the team. That is the most vague thing I've ever read. I don't know, but let's talk about it. Oh, and also he wants Randall Cobb back on the team. So the Packers are desperately right now, as of this moment, trying to trade for Randall Cobb from the Houston Texans. So
is that real? Is that true?
Yes. Yeah. They're and which obviously puts the Packers in a bad spot because the Texans know, hey, you want Randall Cobb, huh? Or your quarterback's not going to show up? Well, brother, I got a deal for you. You know what I mean? They got their Austin Snyder used car salesman hat on right now, and they're just about to, ooh, daddy, here we go. It's going to take about 87 first rounders. No, I'm sure they're going to get Randall Cobb if they really pony up for him. But There's a whole lot in there, but I don't really know what any of it means. Like in the clear thing of it, Amar, what do you make of this?
Exactly that.
Exactly. Moving on to the next segment.
It sounds like they're just like, okay, like, we're sorry we've upset you. We'll try to make things better. Just don't leave right now, or don't push this, trade demand. Don't retire. Like, just come back and we'll take care of it. And this just seems like an official way of just saying, we're going to try to make you happy in this last year or two with him.
At this point now.
With him.
Well, the point is he plays this season, and then I believe that if he wants to, he can demand a trade for the next year.
Okay.
Right.
That's the deal they're working on too. That's another one of the provisions, concessions, whatever you want to call it. All these are so vague though, right? It's like if you were getting hired to a job, Amar, right now, right? Let's say you're getting hired to a job and they're like, hey, in your contract, we'll talk about your pay later. Or we'll talk about your vacation time later, or whatever. You wouldn't be like, yeah, bank on that, brother. We'll talk about it later. That means nothing. That's like when a parent says, like, Mom, I really want this toy. And they're like, we'll talk about it later. You've accomplished nothing at that point, right?
It makes me wonder, like, why do they want him back at this point? I mean, if he's that unhappy and it's gotten to this level where they have to put in provisions to, all that kind of stuff. It just sounds like he really doesn't want to be there. And so it just seems, I usually roll my eyes when pro teams talk about distractions, but this seems like it will be a massive distraction for the entire year. It's like, how far do we really see the Packers going this year with a massive distraction coming from a 39-year-old or 38-year-old quarterback? You would think, and they have a first-round pick, or a quarterback who they use the first-round pick on the roster. So it just seems like this would be a good time to move on and start over. And almost like this is going to be like a wasted year. So, like, why do they want to do that?
Austin went and got his GMC hat just for this segment, ladies and gentlemen. For those who don't know, Austin does sell cars for a living. Go ahead, Austin.
First off, it is not used cars. I am a certified GMC specialist. Okay.
I don't know what that means. Just like I don't know what these provisions mean.
You go into that.
And that's exactly how I'm going to break this down for you guys. You hit the nail on the head. It's exactly when you ask mom and dad, hey, can I have this toy? Or can I get $20 for this new game, or $60, whatever? And yeah, we'll talk about it later. That is everything that just happened. As a man myself, who has been a part of hundreds of negotiations a year, if not thousands in some years, for the last 14 of them, I can tell you that's exactly what happened. Aaron Rodgers won some, with what they did with the last year of his contract, agreeing to go get Randall Cobb. Those things, he absolutely won in those regards, but he lost in so many others. It's no different than if you are buying a car and you have a concern of some sort. Hey, it made a weird kick. And they'd say, well, if we can get that taken care of for you, then get it looked at for you, then we can make a deal. Oh, yeah, absolutely. No. If we can fix it, we will make it. See the two different key phrasing in that? Well, yeah, I can look at it all day long. I can tell you, Mr. Aaron Rodgers, all day long, absolutely, you can have a podium to air your grievances with it. Doesn't mean anybody's going to show up or anybody's going to care. You know what I mean?
Or do anything.
Or do anything about it. Yeah, absolutely. We can definitely address the status and everything of your contract or pending whatever this next offseason. But you're going to play this season, right? Well, yeah, if you guys will agree to look. Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Yeah, we'll take a look. Mm-hmm. It means nothing. They said what they needed to say to get Aaron Rodgers back to training camp and get the wheels back on the track here. That's exactly what happened in this negotiation. So completely 100% understand that. And second of all, and my last point and final point is those of you who have watched this show know the running theme of how I feel about Aaron Rodgers. He's an incredibly overrated quarterback in the history of the league. And of course, as he comes back to training camp, he would wear an office t-shirt dedicated to the most overrated
Okay.
of all time,
You're not going to slam Kevin Malone on my show.
Hey,
You're not going to slam Kevin Malone on my show, brother.
Kevin Malone spilling chili is the cheesiest, it's the cheapest laugh of all time on The Office. And that's just plain
the
fact.
Kevin Malone chili
Aaron
NBA
Rodgers
Jam
is
show is the chili Kevin Malone NBA Jam show is the GOAT of all shirts. All right. You're not going to slam Kevin. How do we mute Austin on this Zoom here? How do we mute him? You are off the show, man.
It would make sense that the most overrated quarterback would wear the most overrated moment in one of the greatest shows.
All right, if people want to listen to you bag on Aaron Rodgers, they can go watch one of the last 10 episodes here. Let's move on from that. But another thing that I want to bring up with this deal, that Aaron Rodgers is back now in camp, it does bring a very dark time with the Packers because it's reported they've released Blake Bortles.
Oh.
Can we take a moment of silence here? Good night, sweet prince. I just want to know if Rodgers, like Blake, I guess he was going to be the backup. Do you think he was going to be the backup, or do you think he was going to start over Jordan Love?
Hey, maybe that was one of the contingencies too. That Aaron Rodgers was like, it needs to be public too. You guys need to like make it very public.
Throw tomatoes at him if you can.
Yeah.
So another thing that I want to know, Austin and Amar, is I don't understand the contract. It feels like it's a whole lot of fluff and nothing, but Aaron Rodgers isn't a stupid guy. Austin, I know you think he's overrated, but he's a very intelligent person. The guy's hosting Jeopardy. I mean, they don't just give that job out to anybody, right? I think you got to be pretty intelligent. So there must be some language in there that's not released to the public yet that we don't specifically know about. Maybe we're just seeing headlines or bullet points or something like that. Maybe it's deeper than we think.
On Rodgers' side too, it has a lot more to do. I think both sides were like, let's just be done with this. I think Rodgers, by all means, still is going to push his way out at the end of this season, but he also understands that, like, I can't do anything about that now. So I think that's why he was okay with the language, right? I think he's just like, hey, you know what? I'm going to trade this car in a year. So I really don't care either way. Do whatever you're going to do with it. You know what? I'm just stick with that theme. I think he's just like, I'm pushing my way out, whether you guys like it or not. I'm not retiring a Green Bay Packer. So yeah, if that's how you guys want to word it, with some obvious changes that, like you said, the public's not aware of, but I think it's just okay, whatever. Let's just get on with the season, be done with this. And then at the end of this next season, then we can readdress it. And I promise you, Aaron Rodgers will get exactly what he wants.
Do you think that the Packers are just kind of hoping or assuming that he'll get into camp and out of loyalty to his teammates, at least, or responsibility, he'll still play his best and his head will still be in the game? Because it's like, that's what I was talking about. It seems like you're taking a big risk of having this disgruntled quarterback on your team. Like, do they just think, okay, he'll get in there and, like, you know, the competitor in him will kick in, the loyal teammate, the leader in him will kick in, and that it's not going to have this, like, negative impact on our season?
I think he'll play well. I think he'll play really well because he wants to get traded next year.
Does he need to really showcase himself at this point, though?
Yes, because he's older. Because he's older.
At the same time, though, as Dylan said, you know, I just a lot about him being overrated and everything, but he still is one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, and you don't get to that level without having.
Oh, here we go. He's walking it back.
I'm just saying, the guy has done some amazing things, but you don't get to that level without having that competitive edge. So, I mean, Aaron Rodgers absolutely knows that once he's in camp. And that's why this is always a big deal for any superstar in the NFL, is getting them to camp, because the team knows once this guy gets to camp, it's on. Okay, it's time to turn the competitive side on, leave the business stuff outside of it, and let's work on winning a Super Bowl this season. That's why it's always such a big deal to do that, right? So yeah, absolutely. I don't know that the Packers are so naive to think that, like, once he walks through that locker room and they start winning a few games, that all of a sudden, like, this breath of nostalgia is going to use, like, man, I love Green Bay now, or just have this, like, epiphany that he wants to spend. Who knows? Maybe he does, but I doubt it. They're not that naive. But I think that they're just like, hey, we just need to get him in on the field, in the locker room, like working, because at the end of the day, he's playing with us this year, or he's going to be on this roster this season unless he retires. So let's get him there. Let's get him in football shape. And then, let's focus on winning games, and let's put this other crap on the side table there until the season's over, when we can focus on just that. You know what I mean?
What's the Green Bay home crowd reaction to him this season?
Oh, they love him.
Are they booing him?
Oh, yeah.
No, they're not booing him. They blame management. Trust me. They're going to blame management.
The pretty like universal theme from fans, at least at this point, is that it's entirely the front office's fault. That they can't believe how Green Bay has managed to screw this up with Aaron Rodgers. And
he's never had enough talent around him. Yeah,
exactly.
That's the thing.
They should have been down there kissing his feet, doing whatever he says to keep him happy all these years. So the fans are gonna do everything they can to spread that guy or shower that guy with as much love as possible, in hopes that does a similar thing. It gets him to stay.
Yeah, I agree. Let's move on to a little Major League Baseball, though. Let's talk about a team we're all familiar with. Just because I shoehorned this segment into the show, because Omar said we never talk about them. Let's talk about the Seattle Mariners. Pause for applause. Amar's surprise face is the worst surprise face I've ever seen. He went. Amar, we're having twins. That's exactly how it went. But no, the Mariners, one game out of the wild card after beating the Oakland A's 3 out of 4, I believe, because they're behind the A's by one game. So that 3 out of 4 stretch really helped them. Last night, they won a game on, I believe they beat the Houston Astros, it was, on a grand slam to win 11-8. So now they're one game back from the wild card. There's about 61 games left. I just want to ask you, Austin, as a Mariners fan, as a baseball fan, as a fan that's been waiting for the Mariners to make the playoffs for so long, is it too early to get hopeful and excited? Or should we start getting like, yeah, they might do it. Let's go. Let's cheer them on. Let's do it. Or is it like, oh, we're prepping ourselves for letdown city once again?
Buddy, they could be one game ahead in the wild card race with 2 left in the season to play, and it would still be too early to get excited about them making the playoffs, even the wild card. Just know that by season's end, Dylan's going to be joining me in my log cabin, walking around and knocking on wood, because it absolutely is. I mean, it's the Mariners, man. As hopeful and as joyful as I want to be, and as great as it has been to see them play this game at a higher level than we've seen, at least the last few years, it's still, the trajectory is no different than what we have been seeing. And that's the problem. Even when we brought in Robinson Cano and we started putting together a fairly deep, 80 win, 85 win team. I think their best season, they topped out at 87, 89. I could be off there, but they missed the playoffs by literally one game. There was 2 games left in the season. They dropped one to the Angels and they ended up missing the playoffs, because the next game didn't matter. They were already out. So until they've actually secured it, until we're like in the top of the 9th inning, and they're at home up by 15 runs, and this is the game that they have to win to clinch a playoff spot, I hold no hope. I mean, it's the Mariners. They find a way
no hope at all.
Bumble this. None. They find a way to screw this up every single time. However, that's not to say that I'm not thoroughly enjoying the season. This season has been so much funner to watch than the last few. We're getting to see some young talent really shine and step forward. Unfortunately, we have had a bit of a roller coaster with one of our younger players. And my Seattle Mariner fanatics are going to kill me for this because I can't remember his name off the top of my head. Forgive me, I've been dealing with a sick baby the last 2 days. But we've had to send him up we brought him up for the majors, sent him down to I think it's cute. What's that?
Kelenic or Kellen?
Yes, Kelenic. That's what it is. So we brought him up to the majors. He was supposed to be he was the number 2 prospect in all of baseball. Brought him up, kind of showed some signs of life and then really flattened out, sent him back. And then I think we brought him up for the 5-game stretch, then sent him back down. So, I mean, but we've got some bright spots, you know what I mean? So it's very encouraging and exciting to watch, but again, until they actually clinch that spot, they're not over the hump, and I am not getting my hopes up just to have them dash once again for the 21st year in a row.
And haven't had Kyle Lewis all year, right?
Yeah, he's been dealing with some big time. I think he came back for a couple of days and then ended back up on like the 15-day DL list for a thumb injury or something like that.
Yeah. You know, it was interesting because I'm hearing you talk and you sounded like a Cleveland Browns fan. I remember the Browns, the playoff game against the Steelers, and they were up like, 30, I forgot, it was like 30-7 or something like that. It's a pretty big lead. Most fan bases would be like, oh, we got this game. Trust, every Browns fan was just like, oh my God, there's still 3 quarters left. This isn't going to hold up. Like, it's like, we're up.
They're going to find a way. I know it.
You're up by 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. You're still just like, something's going to happen. There's like
3 minutes left.
Yeah, you're not safe until you got the ball and you're up 3 touchdowns and you're taking a knee. It's like that.
And there's just like no scientific or feasible possible way for them to blow it, right? Like
when you've seen your team lose in every conceivable way, anything's possible. It's the same.
And that's the problem. The Mariners especially, dude, this is a team that has literally like they have tied the league, the MLB record of all-time wins in a single season to not even make the World Series. Mm-hmm. Right? This is a team that the same season that I just talked about where they dropped the game to the Angels with 2 games left, 1 game back. All they needed to do was win that game and they would have made the playoffs. That same season, if I remember correctly, not only did they tie or break the record for most comeback wins in a season, but they also broke the record that season for the largest margin of comeback victory in MLB history. When they were down, I believe it was like 18-3 or something like that in the 7th inning or in the 6th inning or whatever. And they came back, took it to like 11 innings and ended up winning and then still missed the playoffs. So it's like, not only do they lose, but they lose or not make it in the most insane, inconceivable, like, how is that possible? Like, it makes no sense to me.
Yeah, we've talked about that. The Mariners like own all these like stupid records, like, the only team that's been no hit twice in the same week, like that kind of thing. So,
they're also the only team that's ever thrown a perfect game among 6 different pitchers in a single game, dude.
Yeah, like they have so many like obscure records and just weird things that they've done over their history that it's like, yeah, I mean, if they got out to a 10-game lead for a playoff spot and there's 12 games left, you're like, something's gonna go wrong. Like they're gonna
they'd find a way to lose 12.
Like when I see a graphic saying MLB playoffs, Mariners versus whoever, like, then you believe it. Okay, well, we're actually in the playoffs. Okay, I'll believe it. And then we'll get swept. But it's another.
This is our super positive Mariners segment. Everyone.
We're doing our best, and like I said,
normally we're really tough on them, but we're really giving them some edge today. Austin's going through every brutal loss in history. He just itemized it like he had to give it to the IRS. Like, here's every painful memory in my life when it comes to Major League Baseball. Like,
that's the thing, though. I don't want to be totally negative because that's what's so soul crushing about them is that like you have a team that like doesn't get talked about enough for the absolutely incredible, historic, monumental things that they've done in the Major League Baseball, solely because they can't find a way to like win, like go to the postseason and do anything in the postseason. Like if the Mariners had say the 116 game win season, if they had won the World Series that year, I wouldn't even care that we've had the longest drought of playoff in history where I'm like, okay, well, at least we can hang our hat on like the most historical season or historical run of all time in all of Major League Baseball, right? But like they screwed it up. So it's like there's so many amazing things that this team has done and accomplished and that they're even doing this season in so many bright spots. But it's like it just constantly gets overshadowed by just their nonstop ability to find creative and amazing ways to screw up any momentum that they have.
But hey, at least we talked about the Mariners today. So.
What? Come on, man. I understand the whole let's not get ahead of ourselves take, but this is much better than they've won 5 games at this point. Is it not?
Right.
We're talking about competitive Mariners baseball. They have a chance. It's like Lloyd Christmas. So you're telling me there's a chance. Yes,
But
Lloyd, I'm telling you there's a chance.
If you look through the history of this team, even this playoff drought, they've never really, other than I think maybe 2 or 3 times, they've ended up with like the top pick in the draft and had like one of the worst records in baseball. Very rarely do they ever have the absolute worst record in baseball or are considered like the worst team in baseball. They're
right, but there's a big difference between that.
Not get over the hump.
There's a big difference between that and being like in the mix for a playoff spot this late, right? They're in the mix. They're 1 game back. Like they're not like 15 games back. And man, if they're going on a huge run, the M's could do it. You know,
how long ago was the All-Star break?
A couple weeks.
I don't know off the top of my head.
A couple weeks ago, because that's the typical tipping point. The Mariners will start strong, keep you in contention until after the All-Star break, and then usually you start to see it slowly go up there. So I will say that it is encouraging to see them still win, not only winning games, but winning them in big ways against very good teams.
The Astros are a really good team.
Yeah. I will give them that. Like, that is incredibly encouraging to see. And I think it's a team, too, that if you look at the construct of the roster, if they do make the playoffs, I think they're going to have a very Browns-esque season where they could surprise some teams or they could surprise somebody and even win that first wild card team, knock on wood, not even saying that they're getting there. But I think they could do that. I think, but dang it, they just got to get there, man. You know what I mean? And it's so hard to have faith that they will because they've shown so many times that they won't or that they can't.
You hear that, ladies and gentlemen? I'm pulling Austin to my side. I'm convincing him slowly during this segment. He's like, man, once they get there, they're going to make some noise, brother.
They could.
Yeah.
They could be the team that a lot of people are like, holy crap, how, this is a team that we haven't seen in the playoffs in 2 decades, and all of a sudden they won a wild card game and they're not getting swept, and you know what I mean? They could do a lot of like crazy things and cause some havoc. I'm just saying that's possible, but they just got to get there, and they just please, Mariners, get to the playoffs. I'm begging you, for the love of God.
Well, speaking of just got to get there, we are almost out of time on this episode, so we got to get out of here soon. Before I do that, I want to throw the ball, take the temperature of the room. Let's get some final thoughts. Amar, what are your final thoughts today?
I hadn't even had time to formulate my final thoughts. I'm just, you know what? Team USA basketball. Okay. They lost their opener to France. We know that was bad. First Olympic loss since 2004. They're probably going to be okay. You look at the group they're in. They're in a group with Iran, who they're playing tonight, as we're recording this on a Tuesday, and the Czech Republic. I watched both those teams play. They're not that good. So U.S. should beat them and should beat them comfortably. So we can all kind of, chill out after that happens. They'll make it to the next round. I still think that they will. It's weird. It's like, yeah, I'll still think they're going to win a gold medal. And yeah, they lost their opener, but you can lose in pool play. It's okay. You can still, make it to the medal round. And so I feel like they'll still pull this out. Still the most talented team in the field, still the most skilled team in the field. They don't have as much chemistry as some of the other teams, but a lot of these other teams, it's not like they've been playing with their whole roster for years and years either. They have NBA players on their roster as well who just joined. So, we're not at like this massive chemistry disadvantage. So yeah, I just, calm down, relax. They'll be okay. I think they still win a gold or, a medal, but I know anything less than gold is look like a disaster. So, but yeah, they'll still win gold. So chill.
Austin, what do you got?
So mine's almost similar vein, and it's going to be treading some touchy water, but I don't think U.S. Basketball medals at all this year. And I think some of the problem that we've ran into, and a lot of people have said it, whether you believe it or not, there's no leadership on the team, et cetera. I don't think there's any pride on the team. I mean, these, like you said, Amar, we've got other NBA players playing for their countries with like tons of pride. And like, this is everything. To some, this is almost like more important to them than an NBA Finals championship. It's a huge.
That's what Luka said. Luka said it would be a bigger deal than winning the NBA title.
It is. I mean, you're on like basically the world's grandest stage at that point, where not just like all of the United States is watching, but literally everybody across the entire world is watching. Right. So like that's a huge deal. And I don't think there's enough pride from the U.S. team in wanting to win it for America. I mean, when you're seeing videos released on social media of Bam Adebayo and Kevin Durant arguing over a flipping basketball, like because Kevin Durant shot it and he thought Bam. I mean, what are we doing, you guys? What are you?
I thought that was a joke. Was that a joke or was that like legit heat?
No, I think that seemed legit. Like,
yeah,
really?
Very legit.
Yeah, because he didn't give him his change.
Like when he
basically,
you got to give a man his change back. Yeah. I'm with KD on this one. I like Bam as much as the next guy. You got to give the man his change, right? That's a universal rule.
Though, Dylan, Bam didn't even take his change. Damian Lillard did. If you watch the video, Lillard was the one.
Did you break it down like the like a crime film?
The debate was Bam took the ball that KD says he shot with, but it was like clear that like Lillard actually took that ball, and Bam was like, basically, you wouldn't come at Lillard like that, so you're trying to act like it was me.
Oh,
you're trying to big brother me. And so that's what I'm saying. Like when you have that kind of contention over something that petty, and that's what a lot of people watch this and say, Austin, that's a petty reason to think that they won't medal. But that's my point. Is like when they're having, do you think the people in France, the players in France are arguing over who gets their change? I mean, maybe a little bit, but like,
Michael Jordan would have never called out a teammate for anything, right?
But it wasn't even practice. It was like a photo shoot. So it's like, how are you guys arguing or getting that like emotional over like such nothing? So that just tells me that there's just a lot of me guys on that team right now, and there's zero chemistry, and I just have a hard time believing that they're going to end up, especially because, we have the most talent, but a lot of these countries have shown just from the rise of players in the NBA that they have MVP level talent. You know what I mean? So
the gap. Gold, you're saying no medal, so we'll split the difference and call it bronze, silver.
I was going to call for my final thought. I was going to call it Amar for doing an Austin Snyder style jinx there, but Austin went the complete opposite direction. And I don't know who jinxed who. So I really don't know who's going to win. Like this is a very hard.
We have no impact on what happens.
The Olympics are very hard to like predict because a lot of these teams I've never seen play before. I know Amar watches every single Olympic sport, right down to like extreme crocheting or whatever it is. But yeah, like I haven't watched all these teams play.
The Czech Republic crochet team is tough this year.
Brother, look out when they get in the zone. You don't want to make them mad before the competition either, right? It's like Michael Jordan. You don't want to talk trash to just beforehand because just going crazy.
Competition, and if I knew anything about crochet, I could speak more, but I don't. So I'm gonna shut up. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's my final thought. Is I just saw a double jinx, so I think they cancel each other out. So we're gonna see whatever happens. So now it's just smooth sailing. We're all gravy from this point on. But we got to get out of here. I'm Dylan Holloway for Austin Snyder, for Amar Burton, for everybody else that helps with this show, which is just us three. So we're thanking ourselves at this point. Thanks a lot for watching, and we'll see you next time on Triple Overtime.
Oosh.